A little bit of housekeeping. Today we're getting started now. In a couple minutes, I'm gonna go on to the what we call the situation summary. Just kind of center us on what we're talking about today. As you know, we're really talking about pricing your programs, and um, I am super excited. I'm actually on, some of you know, and some of you also are on the steering committee for UniSound, which is an organization of about 40 um, youth music organizations that are in a collaborative together to make things great. And so I also have a consulting company called JazzSpace Consulting. So it was my pleasure to, pair up with Emily and the team to put this together. Hopefully something useful for all of you or people you know. We're going to go at a super quick pace because we do want to get you out of here at 1:20 or before, if possible. But we're going to, leave it. We're scheduled till 1:30, so we'll go as long as the questions go. But please, even now, do not hesitate to put questions in the chat about anything you hear me say or any of our panelists say. We'll if it makes sense to address them in the moment, we will. Otherwise, like I say, like you see here on the agenda, we are going to have a good amount of time to address those. But please go ahead and put them in the chat so that we don't lose the brilliant thoughts. Or if you have a comment, yeah. So basically, situation summaries, consultants speak for why are we even here today? So months ago, actually, the steering committee got together. It is in one of our multiple conversations. There was conversation around something that a lot of you deal with every year, usually around this time, if not earlier, is strategic planning for the next season. So, and of course, one of those things for youth organizations, youth arts organizations, has to do with, you know, creating your new budget, reviewing your revenue strategies, assessing what happened, what has happened so far, what didn't happen, and how you can tweak for next year. So we thought having a conversation about it, could be really helpful. And the consensus is that, that especially dealing with student tuition, and you may call it something different in your organization, but basically dealing with things that have to do with students paying to participate or their families participating, um, is something that affects pretty much every element, from balancing your budget to pricing your programs, addressing, and then of course also we really always have a mind to address issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're going to talk about that and how that plays into the process of pricing. So first, before we go a little bit deeper, I'd love to do a quick poll. If you could put it in the chat, when do you start planning for your upcoming season? I'm primarily talking about budgeting, pricing. When do you start? Is it, put in the chat? Don't be shy. Is it about now? Uh, have you already started in the fall? And I'm talking about basically the 2024-25 season. Um, are you saying planning? What's that? Okay, Pamela's saying November, December for Q1 and 2. Yeah, makes sense. December, January. Cool, cool. Lee says November through February, with now being the heaviest time. Artistic planning 3 to 9 months ahead. Budgeting usually in May for the September start. About 6 months, January through May. Yeah, okay, cool. So we're on track. Hopefully this is something that everyone is at least thinking about right now, if not deep into. Cool. It's good to know you're not alone, right? Give me some head nods. Do you agree with me? It's good just to know that other people are in the same boat with you. Who are we? We're youth arts organizations with student tuition structures, and we're trying to create balanced, achievable earned income while addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion in pricing and participation. And just to be clear, what we're not going to talk as much about today is any kind of non-tuition based pricing. So we're really focused on organizations that, so in other words, I'm sorry, like ticket pricing, for example. We're not going to be going too deep into that, although, like I say, it all flows together sometimes, but hopefully you'll get something out of it, even if that describes your organization. Some questions that we're going to try to hit today include, where do you start with your tuition pricing calculations? Do you have a scholarship program? Is it funded? If not, how do your students find financial assistance? How does a focus on equity and inclusion influence your pricing decisions? All these and more will be addressed today. And again, I just want to repeat, if questions come up, please put them in the chat. Okay. Like I said, back in November of 23, this group of panelists and I and Emily got together and we just kind of had an open session about what are we talking about here. And I did my best to kind of filter down some common themes. So I would love your comments about this, but here's what I found among this little focus group is that tuition usually includes the primary instruction, obviously, which is almost always at least weekly, if not more often, private lessons or private, one-on-one time with teachers, or it may also include weekly group classes, and group class is a very broad term. It might be, the orchestra rehearsal, it might be a master class, what have you. And then a lot of time, at least with the folks that we're talking to today, a lot of times some or all of the productions, recitals, and concerts are also included in tuition. What's not usually included in tuition are tickets to those like big name productions, like those productions that are like really big and public. Summer programs are usually a separate cost, or usually not in what we're talking about. Almost everyone in this group had a registration fee that is non-refundable. I think that's interesting. And then, things like annual conferences and tours are not usually included. And then sometimes some folks are able to include in their tuition costumes and attire, instruments, or even parent education. So let me go through real quickly. There's actually four, but there's three different approaches that we found among this, small cohort. And the first one I call market-based, which is basically looking at the market of other similar organizations that you are like, and basing your pricing off of what you see there, and then, working it back from that point, how you're going to subsidize the rest of your revenue. An expense-based this is the super oversimplified version, but the super oversimplified version of the expense-based tuition pricing strategy is expenses, all the expenses divided by the number of students you expect to have, or the number of participants. And that's where you get individual tuition prices. Again, almost everybody in this room, it gets much more complicated than that. But from a starting point, yeah, that's the basic concept. And then income-based, actually usually income-based is combined with one of these other two, but it involves using a sliding scale to determine what different families or different students might pay into the tuition. So we'll be talking about that some more. I think that'll be an interesting discussion. All right, let's see. To make sure I got all my notes here. So based on that very, very brief, can you put in the chat which tuition pricing strategy most closely you think matches yours? Like where do you think, based on that very brief description? Or if you use a combination? Yep, market-based paired with income sliding scale. Yep, market-based. Market-based and expense-based. Hallie says they don't currently have a tuition fee. Hallie, I would love to know, and you can put this in the chat for now, if this is something you're thinking about adding or not. Okay, cool, cool. I guess I'll put the same, yeah, question out to Kay. Okay, cool. All right. Good to know. Good to know. All right. So now the part you really came for, which is your panelists. This group is, I mean, just to even come here and be willing to openly and generously share about something that a lot of times we kind of keep under our coat. I just want to say thank you so much. And these folks are super ridiculously intelligent. And like I said, at the November meeting, it was even hard for me to keep up. But I think you're going to get a lot out of hearing what they have to say. So the approach I'm doing here today is, instead of having each one of them go into super detail about their pricing strategy, because there were so many commonalities, and even we tried to do it in November, we almost didn't make it. So I'm going to kind of highlight things, and then in the Q&A, if there are specific things you want to know from any of the panelists or all the panelists, please feel free to ask. But our first panelist is the esteemed Dr. Aisha Morgan Lee from Hill Dance Academy Theater. Some very high level points. I mean, I'm sure many of you have heard of Hill Dance Academy, also called HDAT or HDAT. They are a multi-tiered curriculum-based dance instruction organization. They serve ages 3 through adult. Their operating budget is approximately $900,000 a year, and primarily use a expense-based strategy. So one of the things I wanted Aisha to talk to you about and to highlight is to go ahead and highlight how you get to your calculations around tuition. If you could do that on a high level, because I think it's I found it to be sophisticated and very thoughtful. And so I'd love to hear about that first of all. Aisha.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. As Maggie said, my name is Aisha Morgan Lee, and I am the founder, CEO, and artistic director of Hill Dance Academy Theater, otherwise known as HDAT. We are located in Pittsburgh's historic Hill District community. And a little bit about our tuition. We are in our 19th year. We'll be 20 years old in 2025. When we started, it was more so, a lot of things have changed. I'll say that in the 19 years. And so it was more so were the prices of other dance academies? What were we offering? What could our students afford? What were the different levels? The pandemic did also change a lot of that, along with us growing and purchasing a facility. Changed how we started to do tuition. And because of the pandemic, if you remember, when that happened in 2020, we didn't know what to do. And so a lot of places either shut down or they were trying to continue. And so at that time, our parents were paying tuition, but not necessarily paying tuition online. It was more writing a check or putting their money in the envelope in our mailbox. And so when the pandemic happened, we were like, how are we going to get our tuition money too? Because we're not seeing them right now. How does that work? So we changed our model and went full on online payments that were deducted. So there was no more writing a check, no more putting the cash payment or the money order. They had to sign up for a tuition plan every year, and that was automatically deducted every month. So we didn't have to worry about that. So that was one thing that changed into our model. The other thing is, in purchasing a facility, we have a 29,000 square foot facility. Things had to change because the budget grew and more programming and all of that comes with it. We discussed with our marketing director doing how much does it cost basically to run the program in terms of thinking about our maintenance and our cleaning, which also changed because of COVID, the lights, the utility bills, all that kind of stuff. What is it that we're putting into the program? What is coming out? How do we take that? What are the number of students we want to have, and came up with a price structure based off of that. Now, mind you, we have students ages 3 to 18. We do have adult classes, but that is not counted in this. The students in the academy are ages 3 to 18, and they're broken down into 5 different groups based on level. So once we came up with that amount in terms of what we knew we needed to bring in to make sure that we met all of our costs, we then had to figure out when are the students coming, how many days are they coming, how does that work, how does that factor in? We have, like I said, 5 programs. We have our creative movement students, 3 and 4-year-olds. They come once a week and pay one price. 5 and 6-year-olds come twice a week and pay another price. And then we have our pre-academy students, which are levels 1 and 2. And so they come, I think it's 3 days a week and also pay another price. And so does level 3 and level 4. And we also went from a semester. So we used to do that you would come from September into December, and then the payment would stop, and then we would start again in January to April. And that was just too much, one. And then we also were realizing a lot of the students were staying the whole entire year. So they were staying from September until April for the whole program. So why don't we just make it a year concept? So we changed that as well. We don't include our ticket pricing or anything like that in terms of concert performances inside of that. We used to give parents comp tickets, and then it was the parents who said, why are you giving us comp tickets? And I just know that's something that people did. So we did it. And they said, no, we want to pay for our tickets. We don't want comp tickets. So that was fine with me. So we stopped doing comp tickets. And so now we say families are responsible to purchase 4 tickets. And we use that language because let's say my daughter Anaya is enrolled in our program. As a family, I can go and say to her grandmother, hey, I need you to buy 2 tickets. Hey, to the aunt, I need you to buy 2 tickets. That makes up our 4 tickets. Doesn't necessarily mean that me as the mom, or her dad have to pay for the 4 tickets, but the family does. And so every performance that we do, we have 3 major performances. The families will purchase 4 tickets in support of the programs. There are a lot of other things, though, I must say that we do, and I'm sure you all know this, that in terms of your organizations that you do and you just don't charge for. And that's pretty much what we do as well. And that's from services from our not scholarship program, but tutoring program. We do have a number of faculty who, have special skills in terms of math and writing. And so they help students with their homework. So we have a HDAT Scholar program, but we don't charge the parents extra for that. We also attend a number of different performances. We usually try to get group discount rates, and we say that, HDAT will pay for, if the ticket is $50, maybe HDAT will pay for $25 and the parent will pay for the other $25. That comes from our Parent Advisory Council. Not sure if I'm supposed to get into that, Maggie, right now. Okay, so that comes from our Parent Advisory Council. We have a huge, what we call PAC. PAC is the Parent Advisory Council. Our parents they're worker bees. I absolutely love our parents. And I love them for a couple of reasons. One is they get in and they help where is needed in terms of staying in their lane. They allow myself and our staff and our faculty to handle all things artistic. So they're not on the stage. They're not, well, my daughter should be in this and this and that. No, they stay in their lane, and very grateful for that. We have my mom, our development director, who does an excellent job in raising money. Just walked in this is my panel. I told you that was on. She's our director of fund development. So she does an excellent job in raising money and helping us get what we need. We take with the Parent Advisory Council, they will do different fundraising activities. Right now, we are on our way on Monday to the International Association of Blacks in Dance Conference, taking 28 students and faculty. And a lot of that was because of the Parent Advisory Council. They had, they got creative with different fundraising ideas. Of course, your normal car wash, your bake sale, But now that we have different events in our facility, which brings in a whole different crowd, they started doing some other fundraising activity like the dinners and things like that that could raise money. And we would then have the students perform during another event so people could see it and want to buy in. So they are excellent with that. They also do sometimes cabarets and just other things to just get to know each other as parents. So there's a camaraderie there with them and a better buy-in with the students. We also do have a summer intensive. The summer intensive is priced differently because the students are here for 6 weeks from 8 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. And that is kind of, it's still based in terms of our expenses, but then it gets a little bit higher in the cost because we bring in different artists from around the country who come in for a week and also teach the students kind of in a residency program format.
Mhm.
And we've done something different the last 2 summers. We actually haven't charged for our summer intensive performance at the end. We've kind of created, this is an open house, come and see what the students learn for the summer, plus come and see what we do and sign up for the next year. So we're going to try that model again this year. Not paying them and not asking them to pay for a ticket. We also did a huge what do you call it, like backyard barbecue, so to speak, cookout. So we did charge them though for the food and things of that nature. So we're going to try it again this summer and see if it works, and then discuss if we want to go back to charging parents, you know, to enter the space for the performance summer showcase intensive for a ticket.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to stop you there because that was awesome. It sounds like your summer program has kind of turned into like a taste of kind of situation.
At
And
least for the showcase, yes.
yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. All right, well, let's keep rolling on. And then, like I said, if you have questions for Dr. Aisha or anyone else, feel free to put them in the chat. But let's move on to Pittsburgh, a musical theater with Miss Allison Hannon. One of the things that I know that we talked about, Allison's pricing model is very similar actually to Aisha's. But one of the things that stood out to me was their automated tuition management system. So Allison, I would love, I mean, and you can also share, you know, a little bit more background about Pittsburgh Musical Theater as well, but I would love for you to especially highlight your monthly payment plans and how you've automated that process.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maggie. As Maggie mentioned, my name is Allison Hannon. I'm the development director here at Pittsburgh Musical Theater. We are an arts education organization that has a full-time arts education conservatory, the PMT Conservatory. We have throughout the year about 350 students, and that's 4 to 18. We do offer adult classes as well, but that's a much smaller portion of our conservatory. And then we have young artist productions that happen throughout the year here at the West End in our venue, the Gargara Theater, and at the Byam Theater in the Cultural District downtown. And we also have a professional arm that produces professional musical theater, also at our venue here in the Gargara Theater and in the Cultural District downtown, and you know, various community engagement performances throughout the region. That's the picture you can see here is our Broadway at the Overlook annual City Parks event at the West End Overlook, and things like that. So that's a little bit of background about the company. But as Maggie mentioned, our pricing strategy for tuition is very similar to Dr. Morgan Lee's. It's expense-based. So we look at basically what do we need to make to cover our expenses. We're about 70% earned revenue for the entire company, and that's ticket sales and tuition. So we, you know, that we've been established for 30 years, and things have grown over time, and we feel that we have a general ability to predict, you know, where that's going to have to come from and what we're going to have to cover. The things that could fluctuate, like many of you might experience, is okay, if our registration is getting to a certain amount, are we going to need to add another teacher in the room? For our younger classes, do we need to add another teacher because they're smaller kids? They need, you know, more individualized attention. Someone needs to be able to take someone to the bathroom, things like that. So a lot of that, you know, our faculty, who we call our resident artists, a lot of the fluctuation could happen in determining how how many instructors we need for the course of the semester. We operate on a semester basis, so we have a fall semester and a spring semester that are independent. Of course, there's significant overlap between our student populations during those times, but you know, we have kids that participate in different things throughout the year, or so they may come in the fall and not come in the spring, or the other way around. And we also have a 4-week summer camp that is independently priced as well. Another thing that I wanted to comment on, just to add more, another dimension to what Dr. Morgan Lee said, we have various performance opportunities throughout the year, and our young artist productions that our students can choose to participate in. It's free for them to participate in the production. They pay a small fee that covers a cast dinner and a t-shirt. But then the tickets for those performances are not free. We try to keep the prices low because they're a student production, but our families do pay, and members of the public are welcome as well to come to those productions. Every semester we have a student showcase, so a performance opportunity, and then some additional programs for our advanced student performance opportunities that are free of charge. So we try to have free opportunities to come see the kids, but also paid opportunities. So, a little bit of both. Like Dr. Morgan Lee said, her summer program showcase is free. We try to have a free showcase every semester, and then the paid opportunities as well. So Maggie asked me to touch specifically on our automated tuition management system. And this is something that we implemented and made a lot of changes to during the pandemic for, very similar reasons. In the past, we had always offered, you could either pay in full and get an early registration discount for paying in full, or you could go on a payment plan, which was sort of worked out with the conservatory staff, the timing of the payment plan, how many payments you were going to make, which method you were going to make the payments in. And as you can imagine, that was really time intensive to manage, and it involved a lot of maybe back and forth with parents and families, a lot of labor on the accounting side of it, and sometimes actual revenues that deviated pretty significantly from what our projection was at the beginning of the semester, which is really difficult for organizations like ours. So we switched to an online registration and tuition management system called CourseStorm. I know there's some other options that are going to be mentioned later in the presentation. And I don't know that it's the best perfect system. I think we're still open to finding something else, but it's definitely allowed us to implement an automated tuition payment schedule that has been very beneficial to the organization in saving on staff time, and also helping to make sure that our projections for tuition revenue match the actuals at the end of the semester, or very close. So another, what it does basically is at the beginning of the semester, you register, you either pay in full or you sign up for a payment plan, and you can choose, I think, 3 or 4 payments on a monthly basis. And so we have a good sense of exactly what's coming in when. It's allowed us to kind of even out our revenue, working for a nonprofit every day. Many of us are focusing on what's coming in, what's going out, and this has allowed us some stability and some evenness in what's coming in across tuition. And another change that we made was we were able to extend the early registration discount to anyone. So whether they were paying in full or going on the payment plan. And I think that that's something that is really important, because to me, that's a way for families to save a little bit of money. And, it's about, in my mind, committing to coming to the program. And I don't necessarily think that cost saving benefit should only be afforded to those who can pay in full on day one. I think that should be something that if you're committing to coming to the program and you want to be involved, that everyone should get to benefit from that. So that was another change that I think was for the better when we implemented this system. I think families are satisfied with it. We do still offer to families to pay by check or cash if they want, because we know some families have special circumstances or the way that they manage their finances, they just prefer that. But that's kind of a, a special accommodation, and implementing the automated payments has cut down on that a lot. And it's made it more manageable for the staff, for the families that we are coordinating that for. So that's definitely,
Cool.
the highlight of the automated tuition management system. Is there anything else, Maggie, you wanted me to give an overview on or talk about? I know I wanted to definitely specifically describe that.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. And like I say, we might get into some more later. One real quick question. Your core storm platform, is that directly connected to your bank, or is there any manual processing that you have to do?
No, it's directly connected to the bank, which is it's great. We get a report of what the deposit was. Now I will say, and I'm sure you all know this too, no convenience comes without a cost.
Right.
So I think that's maybe why we would be open to looking at other options, because I think the fee structure is, there may be something more that could save us more out there. But at the time, like I said, at the time that we selected this platform, I think the calculation or the justification was, at the end of the day, when we're manually managing the credit cards, we're paying fees on charging the credit cards by ourselves, number one. Number two, someone's card is declined. They changed their card. They had fraud, so they had to cancel their card and get a new one. We're trying to chase them down to get the updated card. That, for whatever reason, they're not able to pay, but they don't want to let us know that, so we can't adjust our predictions. At the end of the day, I think that it was better financially for us to just take the hit on the fee than the money that we were losing out on because the previous way of managing it wasn't happening perfectly. But now that we've established this and we know there are other, and I'm sure a lot of organizations move to something like this, and there's probably many more options now than there were when we instituted this system. I think that, as we prepare for our new budget in the new year, we're open to other options, but for now, it allowed us to put a system in place that achieved allowed us to achieve a lot of benefits financially for us and for our families. So,
Okay.
that was the main win.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to move right along to Lee from Pittsburgh Youth Chorus. Lee, give us the high level highlights of what Pittsburgh Youth Chorus is, but would love for you to primarily focus on your trust-based income reporting for your sliding scale participants, how you came up with that. And then, like I said before the meeting, I think you guys do a great job on your website. I don't know what the other communications are, but of really communicating clearly with parents and those who have to buy into your strategy. So go for it.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. Lee Savalixic, Executive Director and Associate Conductor with Pittsburgh Youth Chorus. We do use an income-based sliding scale, which is kind of one of the key features of our pricing model. It's something that we rolled out I think the fall of 21 and made it kind of officially public. And actually, for a few years, we use a matrix that has income ranges and then also household sizes. While we were building this, we talked to several different organizations that use sliding scale models, some here in the city, others in other cities. And especially given that the tuition assistance application that was in use before was very hefty and cumbersome, and I actually received feedback that people felt like it was invasive, we went with advice or just sharing like this that I got from Boston Children's Chorus, where they have families self-identify what their income range is, and do not ask for verification. And so, we make that trust-based policy just very known from the get-go. We can, if there are questions that come up about it, there's complications to everything, and there are some complications that we were recognizing a little bit last year, where this year we did decide, rather than publicizing the matrices, to have a very, very short, less than 5-minute application where people identified those numbers, and then we send them an email with what their obligation is. We do have a policy that we don't allow finances to be the sole reason for people not to participate. And so if a family comes back and says, hey, we're still really not going to be able to do this, then it becomes just a case-by-case thing that that I work out with those parents. Actually, just had such an exchange earlier this morning. The parent, I should say that we also have another model in addition to that, like our kind of our like legacy performance choirs, as well as the training choirs that are located in the suburbs, kind of all focus on that. And it is looking at other kind of I'll say premier is a word that the organization has used a lot, looking at other premier youth arts education organizations, trying to kind of base kind of in the similar market in terms of the top price. And then, of course, the sliding scale runs down from there. When we built the sliding scale, really aimed to have it be as equitable as possible, because they're not all created equal. Some of the sliding scales, you'll see that at the lowest income levels, the price that people are required to pay is a far higher percentage of the family's income than the percentage of income at the higher income ranges of the scale. And so we aimed for that not to be the case. So the percentage of income that decreases actually as you work your way down the scale. We also have a few school-based programs where the sliding scale is not in play. It's basically those programs. We have 2 of them. One currently is funded through a corporate sponsorship through Duolingo. The other one is not currently funded, and so we are subsidizing it through our other revenue. But basically, it's just a $50 registration fee for students just at that school to participate in the program. I think that the detailed parent communications on the website that you're referring to, Maggie, is a document that we put together called the Value of PYC. Since we have had, a number of families kind of see the price and kind of have some sticker shock. And so that top price without seeing the full matrix. And so we compiled this document kind of explaining everything that is included. We do have like some merchandise and some clothing that is included. We do include complimentary tickets for parents. I actually got the opposite feedback that Aisha's parents gave her, where when I first came into my role, parents were saying, we pay really high tuition and then we have to pay a really high ticket price. And so we actually increased the price of tuition, but offered complimentary tickets at the same time. So, but this document kind of explains like everything that's included, all of the, the kind of hard and soft benefits of being in a program like ours. Details the hours of instruction and the merchandise that comes along with the program, and the tickets, and kind of does this like, here's the total value and the tuition is only sure. So we have a page like that for each one of our programs.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you, Lee. I'll withhold my specific questions for later, but we appreciate, you're going into detail on all that.
Yep.
Moving right along, the illustrious Lindsay Nova from Three Rivers People's Orchestra. One thing that stood out to me when we were talking, Lindsay, is that, you know, you said it right off the bat. We really look at the market and how our tuition costs compare to other orchestras in town. So tell us a little bit about that. And I also, kind of similar to Lee, thought it would be good to highlight your no questions asked. It's kind of two different ways of saying it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, we also use the term the trust-based financial assistance, so both. But yeah, I'm Lindsay. So nice. If I haven't met you, very nice to meet you. I'm from Tripo. Our budget size, our student-facing programs are about 700,000. If it's not a tour year, this is a tour year, so that's adds about 500. So we're a little over $1 million this year. 240 families, 270 students, like it says there. And I would say, you know, because I do have a pretty good sense of the pulse of the National Youth Orchestra tuition scene, and most of the youth orchestras of our size that are doing the kind of work that we're doing are way more expensive than any of the programs in Pittsburgh, which I find fascinating. But we do base any of our tuition costs first and foremost on what is going on in the city, because there are 4 youth orchestras here, and we are already one of the more expensive programs. So that is one of the first things we look at is, you know, what is unique to Pittsburgh and what can the market bear here? Because even with our tuition prices being what they are, you know, we do see significant scholarship needs. So I would say definitely market-based first, because we're not charging what it costs to put on the program. Not any, of course, none of us really are. But I think that one of the things that we have really leaned into over the years is that there's a lot of opt-in things. So yes, your tuition includes your rehearsals and things like that. But concerts, donations, you know, any extra asks, there's a lot of times that families are given the opportunity to support us. And we try to build that culture from the very first time that they join the organization. And I think it's one of the reasons why we've been having some good success building our individual giving, because we're creating that culture of philanthropy from the beginning, but they're choosing it at every step. So I think on both sides, you know, if the family wants to attend the concert for free, the ticket is free. But if they want to pay more, and if they want to donate, or if they want to opt into a little bit of a different experience, they can buy an extra ticket, they can add a donation on, they can have a seat reserved for them. So there's lots of opportunities for people to choose to be generous. Specific to the scholarship program, similar to Lee, we got feedback a few years ago that our process was just a little too invasive. And we wanted to make it easier for the families that need the help to ask for help. You know, I'll never forget this conversation with this one mom, and I was trying to figure out why she didn't want to come and register for a program. I said, but there's scholarship assistance. And she said to me, baby, I've looked at your website. I don't have time to fill out your form. I've got 3 jobs and I just can't. And I will never forget that. It was such an enlightening experience to see our process through her eyes, because the way I had looked at our process had been through the funders' eyes, who were asking me for data that I would get from tax returns, et cetera. And I just said, nope, I'm going with this process over here. And what really changed was during COVID, we had a summer program, that fateful summer 2020, and we couldn't run the summer program. And we said, well, these families are still dying for something. We'll do it over Zoom. It'll probably suck, but we'll do the best we can. So we're going to do a name your own tuition price summer camp. And we were really scared because everyone's going to pay $1, and it was not cheap to pay all these people time to like run the summer program. And so we said, here's a suggested tuition price, but you name it. You have to pay at least $1, but pay something. And we were like, fingers crossed that we're not going to completely just, you know, lose it on this. And we were really actually humbled and surprised, and it rebuilt my faith in humanity that that we saw exactly the same spread that we did when it was, you know, somewhat of an onerous process. We saw families choosing to pay more, we saw families choosing to pay somebody else's tuition, and we saw families who needed help asking for help. And I would say that the trust-based philanthropy model, most of the time, the requests, a family is not asking for what I would have given them. I would say it's very few times that I have a family that I'm like, I know you can afford to do more. That is actually the exception. The rule is you've only asked for 50% and you need to ask me for 75% because that's what I would have given you. And the family usually is shocked for, like, well, no, I know there's other families in need. And it really has shifted my perspective. Now I've had to put my money where my mouth is, that if I say no questions asked, and I know that family can afford to pay more, I sit in the belief of, your finances better than I do, and I'm not going to enter into any judgmental conversations about what I think you can or can't do. That if I believe that, I have to be able to stand by it. So there are a few times where I'm like, really, in my head, and that is not the face that I give to the family, because it is not my business to be in any position of judgmental anything about what they're dealing with. And on the flip side, I'm encouraging families to really ask for what they need and to let me help them. And it has been wonderful. I also encourage families, if they would like to share with me a little bit about what's going on. And I tell them what I'm going to do with it. I say, I'm going to take your name off of it, but I use this in aggregate to help fund scholarships, because when donors know who they're helping and why, it makes all the difference. And so we've been able to do very specific scholarship funding by anonymously sharing a little bit about what our families are dealing with. And that has helped the donors to feel really connected with the students and the families that they're supporting. So we love it. It's been really helpful. It also means that I'm not looking at any families and saying, you deserve this much and you deserve this much. They're able to actually tell me that. And so I love being taken out of the equation. The other thing that I would say we do that is a little bit different, I think, is we don't necessarily have a budget for scholarship need, I guess, every year based on past 5 years in aggregate. And then because I fund for scholarships after I award them, so we never have to go to a family and say, I'm out of scholarship. We say, tell me what you need. And if you can share your story, it will help me fund it. And I just do my best to guess. I would say the one exception to that this year was tour scholarships. I did have a specific budget that I needed to keep to, but I will tell you, we did the exact same model of trust-based scholarship requests. And I told every single family that applied for tour scholarship, I don't know whether I'm able to do everything in full, but I'm going to try. I need to see what the aggregate is. And we came in under what I guessed. So I'm a big fan of trust-based scholarship funding. I hope that our funders, especially some of the corporate funders who have asked for details and specifics about, are we documenting the need? I hope they continue to come along with us. So far, we haven't had a whole lot of pushback, but I hope it stays that way. Anything else, Maggie, that you want me to hit?
No, that was great. And I'm really glad you touched on the funder question, because I think that's a big one. And I think we'll circle back to that actually in a couple minutes. But I want to make sure I give thank you, Lindsay, so much. That was great. I want to give Jennifer Madge from the Pittsburgh Music Academy a chance to talk about what they do. Again, same format, Jennifer, if you could just give us the high level details of what the Music Academy is about. And then I really thought it was cool, and what was highlighted to me was how creative you guys get, because you are a for-profit. You might be the only quote unquote for-profit. We know that you're not for-profit, in the room. But it also kind of gives you the opportunity to be creative about discounts and credits and scholarship opportunities. So, go for it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Madge, and I'm the Academy Director of the Pittsburgh Music Academy. I was actually the very first employee of the original owners and bought into the business. So I didn't inherit, but I inherited the structure of the company to be a for-profit. As the slide shows you, we offer private music lessons, group classes, performance opportunities, everything that a young musician would want. We have it. We also do offer Music Garden, which is our classes for infants and toddlers and preschoolers to establish a routine and a rhythm of making music with their parent, which lends itself to the Suzuki philosophy. So we have a number of different programs that you can choose to purchase for your lessons. You can buy into everything in our comprehensive program, and everything is included: the concerts, the performances, the lessons, the group classes, parent education. It's all included. And then you can tier down from there. And our season is based on the school year, with a la carte offerings in the summer. Everyone can choose whatever they like. To try to keep our costs down, I rent shared spaces. 2 of our 3 locations, we use churches, and they're largely vacant during the week. So it is a great way to share resources and limit what I hope is a climate impact by using a space that's sitting there doing nothing all week. Now it's making music, and our footprint is on the use of a building, on how hard we are on a building, is very low. It's just people coming in, make music, and they leave. So there's not a lot of food or other kinds of damage that could potentially be done to a space. So that has worked nicely to help to keep our costs down. We because we're a for-profit model, we try to think of ourselves like a retailer. How can we offer discounts that someone would want to take advantage of during the holiday season? For example, our Flex package is a package of lessons, and during Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday, we offered that package for a discounted rate, both to our current families and to non-using families outside of the academy. And that brings us in a nice chunk of income every year for the same product, but with a little bit of a discount for them. Because of the discount, they buy in, and they buy more lessons. We also offer a slight discount for siblings or second instrument. If a student wants to play more than one instrument, they can get a little bit of a discount. Because it's the nature of the lesson is private, it costs us the same amount of money to pay an instructor. So the discount has to be nominal, but parents do appreciate that for sure. Since we can't offer scholarships, we have made individual arrangements with particular families. If they've been long-standing customers of ours and they fall on hard times, we're happy to negotiate some kind of a special pricing for that person, or they can help in the office to help us out and get them a better price. And we have also sent customers to investigate other funding opportunities that they may qualify for. For example, the Allegheny County Music Festival Fund. This fund is for someone who qualifies for an award from them. Would be if they receive some kind of services, be it WIC or free lunch or anything along those lines. They can apply for a scholarship from that music festival fund, and it can be used in any number of ways. One way is tuition for our program, so the fund would just pay us directly. And of course, we encourage parents to ask for a relative to maybe pay the lessons fees for the lessons if they're looking for other ways to help defer the costs.
Cool. That was great. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm going to highlight some of those resources that you guys have mentioned towards the end here. But yes, I know some folks have to. Thank you, Jennifer. Sorry, let me make sure I say that. Really appreciate you. And I know we've had a couple conversations, so I continue to be enthralled by your model. Maybe it's the entrepreneur in me, I guess. Anywho, I know some folks have to go around 1, so I want to make sure to leave plenty of time for questions. Does anyone have any? I always have plenty, and if you're a panelist, you can also ask your fellow panelists if you have questions about anything that was said, just go ahead and unmute and speak up. We're a pretty small group today, so. Any questions? I know there's some folks who are thinking about doing tuition pricing.
I will just say that after our initial meeting, learning about the different ways other companies, other organizations were charging their tuition and the time frame of when they were charging it, I've decided to make some changes. I've made some changes for this season, and I'm going to be making more changes next year. We currently offer a 1 payment, a 2 payment, or a 9 payment model, and the 9 payment model essentially equates to by the month, and regardless of how many times the policies are stated that you're not paying for the lessons in that month, people decide that that's what they're paying for, and when they want to stop coming, even though that's not allowed, they just decide they're going to stop paying. And so I tried to get away from that kind of language by calling it a 9 payment plan instead of a monthly payment plan. I'm going to eliminate that option completely for next season and do a 1, 2, or 4. And each of those, we do a discount for full payments, but we also offer an early registration fee that is lower than at the other times of the school year. So we are able to offer that discount for families who are ready to register in advance. And then if they choose to pay in full, they can save a little bit of money.
Jennifer, do you also
everybody for offering those ideas to me? Go ahead.
actually, I think Lindsay came. Lindsay, do you have a comment or?
Oh, I was just gonna validate and echo what you said, that we got rid of our semester payments, because then if a family had to drop, there was no acknowledgement that we had ongoing expenses, even though they weren't in their chair anymore. And we went to a pay in full or a monthly, and the monthly ends well before the season. It ends in February. So the other thing that happened this year I thought I would share that was fascinating was, we thought, because almost all the families were on the semester plan and we didn't used to have a great monthly plan, and we thought we'd have almost no families do pay in full. And there was a little bit of a financial incentive to pay in full. It was like $50 or something. And it wasn't even our fee. It had to do with the new system we were going to. And I was like, I bet 20% of our families will do that. And it was like 65% of the families chose to pay in full when there was a small financial incentive. And we were like, what? Was not what I budgeted for at all. So we actually lost a lot of money on because of my assumption on our family's behavior. But I just found, and I thought it was interesting, that if there's no cost to them, they're going to take advantage of the fact that you're essentially like allowing them to, just pay as they go, and then they can hedge their bets, especially if there's a question about attendance. But as soon as there's a reason not to do that, a lot of our families had a little more fluidity in their cash flow than we thought they did. And so that actually has been great. And now we'll budget differently next year, but just thought I would share that. Oh, the other thing we do is that $50 registration fee, Maggie, that you mentioned. It is required and it is non-refundable, but if it's a scholarship family or if it's a family who pays in full, we pay the fee, or it's included. The language is specific, but I just thought I would share that's actually the incentive I'm talking about. We credit that towards your tuition if you're paying in full or if you're a scholarship family. But if you're going to take advantage of a payment plan, which requires a lot more staff involvement, then it's an extra fee. So that's how we do it.
I mean, for sure, something I've learned from this process, and yeah, Lee, I see your hand. Everyone is doing it differently. And there's also, just like with all the other revenue strategies, we have to try, there's always a trial and error period. You have to try things, you have to see what works. It's a market. It's actually kind of a marketing function that you have to just see how your patrons, who in this case are your families and students, how they react to how you do things. So yeah, Lee.
I actually have a question for Lindsay. Lindsay, I'm familiar with your tuition scholarship form. We actually borrowed it and used it for a summer camp just to try it out and see how it might function kind of differently than our sliding scale. One of the things I didn't hear this from a lot of people, but I wondered how many people kind of maybe we're thinking it, because we certainly had less people make use of it than would have through the sliding scale, right? I did hear once or twice people say that they felt really uncomfortable, like naming their own discount, basically.
Mm.
Do you hear that at all?
Yeah, we have quite a few. So the way that the form works, and if anybody wants to see it, it's just a public form, but it asks for a series of optional questions and you're encouraged to list them. It asks for your household income, number of household members, a small narrative about what's going on. Again, all optional fields. And then it says, name your percentage you're requesting. And we do percentage because a lot of students add programs after, and that way if we get away from dollar amounts, it helps us continue to add programs. So it's like 25%, 50%, 75%. A full tuition scholarship is somebody who is self-declaring that their finances are in crisis. And those families, I try to, also have some conversation, and if they're in crisis, they can qualify for the Musicians Assistance Fund, which can do more than scholarship. It can do some private lesson support or instrument maintenance or things like that. The narrative is critical for that kind of situation. And we haven't had anyone decline to give us a narrative for that. But one of the options is, I don't know, please contact me. And quite a few families will pick that because for that reason, like, I think that they need permission, like they need to feel like it's okay. And so the one-on-one conversations and the narrative can really help them with that. And one of the things that has been really helpful, especially like I mentioned, there's frequently families who don't ask for as much as I would have given them if I, back in the days when I had massive formulas and Excel spreadsheets. And one of the things that helps them a lot is for me to say, you should know other families who are in perhaps better situations than you are asking for more, and it's okay. And that kind of, especially because I see a lot of breadwinners, in these private Zoom meetings, their kids are not there and they want to provide for their families. And it's a really moving experience to try to empower these families to say, it's okay. That's why these are here. And then the other thing that I do, because I think this also helps with that, Lee, is that I try to empower those families to say, when things get better for you, if they do, when they do, help me pay it forward. And I ask for them to have a commitment some point in the future to be that family that helps the family backwards. Because I said it's families like you that are making your scholarship possible. And so you don't need to feel any guilt right now because you're going to be that family for somebody else someday. So those are some of the things that I think have really helped, is the private conversations, like helping them put their request in perspective and know that it's okay and know how I'm going to fund it, and that they also can give it forward, because then I think it relieves some of the burden, especially for those that have a lot of pride in being able to provide for their families. So I don't know if that helps.
Allison.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit of information to this conversation that could maybe be helpful. And I'm learning so much. I really love some of the things that you said, Lindsay, about empowering them to, do that for someone else down the line. We don't, in our financial aid process, we don't have the family suggest what their need is. We ask them to describe their circumstances and their income. I'm really interested in the idea, but we don't currently do that. But what we do is when we make a financial aid offer to them, we specify that the offer is a starting point. So in our communications, we say, we want you to attend. So, here's what we're thinking. Does this work? And I think that gives families the comfortability to come back and say, no, but it's close, or no, but how about this? So I think more often than not, our financial aid conversations are just that, a conversation. It's a back and forth when we arrive at a number that works for the family and the organization. And a lot of times that depends on the timing too. So some other things that I heard during this conversation, I think you made a comment earlier, Lindsay, and I liked your language that you fund financially, or you give financial aid before you fund it. And we're kind of in a mix. That's what we had always done. And then during COVID, when we were reworking our budget, or finalizing our budget, we were able to put a dollar value in our budget and say that that's what we're guaranteed, but we can go above that. And I think that actually helps, because it helps on my end, because I can go to a donor and say, we have a student that really wants to enroll, but we're already maxed out. I think that's a good piece of fundraising leverage, number one. Our funders, our institutional funders like that. And then, it also can allow us to go back to a family closer to the start of the semester and say, hey, actually, we're able to make this work. Because it's all like, with an expense-driven model, it's all kind of, it just flows. Like I was saying, a lot of times we get to a point where it's like, well, we have room in the class. We're not going to need to bring in another instructor for this class. So our expense is kind of covered. We can add another student without a financial impact with a nominal financial impact on the organization. So it's all a matter of timing and a dialogue. And I think going to families and saying, hey, this is the starting place for the financial aid conversation, but let's keep talking. Like if this doesn't work, we're going to make it, we're going to make it work. It's just given us more flexibility to work with the families, all the way through the process up until really the first day of class. We could say, we promise you're going to be here. Don't worry about that. But we have more wiggle room as things progress.
Yeah, I
So
would
if
echo that. Oh, sorry. One quick thing. I would just say one of the pieces of feedback I have heard that we've tried to figure out how our language can navigate, and I don't know that we're necessarily always getting it 100%, is that when we all publish our tuition rates, even with language saying there's tuition assistance available, I have heard a number of times a mom saying, well, how do I know? I mean, because the tuition assistance doesn't happen until after they're accepted. And if they're brand new to us and they don't know us and they don't know me, and even though it says you can ask for what you need, they're worried that I'm going to go through and prepare my child and get their hopes up, and then I can't afford it and I have to tell my child that. And trying to establish that trust in the process before they've even done anything with us is definitely an uphill battle. And I think that's where word of mouth and conversations like these really help, because I need a Jennifer Madge to say to the mom, no, they really mean it. It's okay. I promise you can afford it. Because it doesn't matter what's on my website. It's humans talking to humans, and moms worrying about, trying to make sure that their opportunities for their kids are like actually going to follow through and they don't have to see that look on their face. So I just wanted to add that I think that's an uphill battle. And I think that's one of the things I really liked about publishing the sliding scale, Lee, was, to me, I was like, oh, that's the answer. They could see it before they even joined. But then it sounds like there are some other complications. So there's no one good answer. It all is just hard. So I'm grateful for the struggle, though.
It really was great for people to see it. Oh, sorry, Mag, you keep on wanting to jump in.
Hey, that's why we asked you guys here, because we knew you would talk. Go ahead.
It really was great to have people see it ahead of time, and we have lower enrollment. One of my questions, I think we're going to be out of time, but I'm just curious, especially for those who do expense-based budgeting and pricing, do you ever struggle to, have the enrollment that is your ideal enrollment? And so like right now we see less enrollment than we did, not totally less, but less than we expected based on last year. And I'm wondering if it's because it's not public anymore. But what we were finding is that some of our people at the top of the scale, we could tell that there was actually a little bit of kind of quiet resentment that would come out sideways every so often, knowing what other people were paying.
Interesting.
Yeah. And not conducive to the type of, unified community that we're striving to build.
Well, I would love to hear Aisha's take on that. because if I were, and I mean, to segue into what I was actually gonna ask about, if I were listening to like Lindsay and Allison and Lee just now, I hear a lot of, you have your guidelines, you have your sliding scale or what have you. There's still a lot of case by case conversations happening. And Aisha, I didn't hear that as much from your model. I did hear a lot about a very active, and I may be completely off base here, but like more communal, parent based, like we're all helping each other kind of thing. Like, have you encountered any of these issues? Have you ever had to like talk to families on case by case basis about their ability to afford the program? How would you
Yeah.
how do you address those issues?
I mean, one, our tuition is, even at the expense base that it is and all that we have going on, it's still very low compared to tuitions in dance academies in Pittsburgh and other places, and compared to what my parents paid for me to go to Civic Light Opera Academy. However, we do offer students scholarships, but that is something that we do. We have a scholarship committee. And so we have a scholarship application. They review the application. There's basic questions in terms of contact information. And then we ask the parents, the families, what is it? Why is it that you need a scholarship? So just tell us your story. And they share with us in writing, sometimes over a phone, depending on the if it's like a grandmother who's like, I don't do email, and so call us, tell us what the issue is. And they'll share with us in terms of why they need the scholarship. And then we ask them to just comfortably tell us what they can pay. And we say that in terms of, I don't want you trying to figure out, well, I'm telling you I could pay $200, but this is a stretch and it's going to stress me out. What can you comfortably pay towards your tuition? We never give full scholarships at all, because we find that there needs to be a buy-in from the family. If there isn't a buy-in from the family, then there isn't that commitment from them. Even if the buy-in is just $100, it helps when there is that buy-in from them. Once they fill out the scholarship application, the committee meets. We have a certain amount of money and we try to stretch it as far as we possibly can stretch it. And we also then tell the families that this is confidential. So, because everybody's situation and scenario is different. We have had families, we have about a 85–90% retention rate. So we have a lot of families who've been with us since their child was 3. And so there are times when sometimes they just fall in hard times. And so they were able to pay it, but then something happened, whatever that may be, a split in the family, a divorce, a job loss, and we've had tons of that. And so they'll come to us and say, we know we were able to pay it this time, but we can't do it this time. What can we do? And so we work with them. We don't necessarily offer scholarship tuition. I will say this to students who are new to the program, because the academy is so intense and so concert based as it relates to dance. Some families don't always understand that. And so their idea of coming into the program is a little different in terms of what they're going to get and what they want to see. And so we want to make sure that the student wants to be there. We also realize that sometimes the older they get in the higher levels, of course, because the more it costs, that they also need help as well. So we try to support them on that. We also try to do some other stuff, like we do a lot with the wish book. And some of those asks happen to be things that they need. Like when our students needed point shoes, that was one of the asks, because point shoes are about $90 a pop, plus all the accessories you need. And if you have a student who's in point shoes and they're literally going through 3 different pairs, that's a lot of money. So those are the kind of things that we also do. But we do have scholarship assistance. It's more so, you kind of just keep it in the family of what happens and not necessarily, all out there. And parents appreciate that. And they don't, necessarily want everybody to know what's going on with them. Like I said, they've been here for a long time, so a lot of them know each other. So when circumstances change, if we can help them, we do our best to do that.
Cool. Wow. So it just sounds like, thank you, Aisha. It sounds like across the board, you're going to have case by case situations, and you're just going to go for it as much as you can. I want to get to Zaina's question in the chat before we go. So it's really great. She says, for those of us who are not taking tuition right now, we're not a tuition-based program, what would you recommend as the starting place? If you were starting from scratch, what would you do first? And then her follow-up is, if you could actually go the complete opposite direction and offer your programs for free, would you? Lindsay?
Zaina, if I were you, I would start communicating about the value proposition like Lee was doing. And this is what it costs to get the things that you're getting, and try to make sure that you're communicating that in a way that feels really clear for the parents to see. I think people have no clue what things cost ever. And then secondly, I would introduce the pay what you will model, because I would, and especially if you're coming from a free program, I would emphasize paying $5 is okay, or whatever your base amount is, just to get them in the habit of a transaction. Because I think, to Aisha's point, and we agree, like a full scholarship, then even $50 or $100 creates a different, there's something about the financial transaction that also creates the accountability of, you know, following through on expectations. So I would set your minimum amount and say, we're instituting tuition, but guess what? If you need it to be $5, it can be $5. If here is what another program in another city would charge, they would charge $200. If you could pay that, that would be great. If not, you know, so I would just start to introduce an expectation, but you could also do it the other way and ask for at-will donations towards the program. And to your second question, I would absolutely, at some point, I love the idea of moving to a tuition-free model. I think that would introduce, completely change the competitive nature of a program. There are programs out there that do it. There's a youth orchestra in Boston that's completely tuition-free, including tours. They have some really high-level donors. I think that at some point, if there was enough of a culture of philanthropy, I think that could be very, very possible, but the development side of an operation would have to like triple. So I like concepts of it. I think to build the infrastructure to support it would be substantial, but I've actually wondered that very thing. Could at some point a lot of our programs be tuition free and change the nature of the competitive need to, or desire to get into them? I don't know. And because we, like I talked about, we're so market based in our particular how we set tuition, what would that do to the ecosystem here if we suddenly rolled out a tuition-free model? I have no idea. It's not anything I could do anytime soon, but maybe in a 5 or 10 year wish list. So I hope that helps.
Anybody else have a step 1, step 2? Allison?
I'm sorry. I don't know that I have a step 1 or step 2. I really agree with what Lindsay said. And I think thinking about, you know, what else, you know, you're currently covering your expenses, how, you know, through contributed revenue or ticket sales. What else could you do if some of that expense was being offset by tuition? You know, how could your programs expand? What other areas could you fund? I think that's an important thing to think about. But the thing that I wanted to comment on is, you know, if you could offer your programs for free, would you? I have such mixed feelings on this because, you know, like Dr. Aisha like Dr. Aisha and Lindsay, I think I don't want to say never, we've never given a full scholarship. Even if it's $25, I think we have seen, like others have mentioned, that when something has value, when there's a cost, it has value to you. And I think that that's something that we've always tried to, and you know, if that money ends up getting paid or not, that's one thing, but just that there's a value to it. And so I feel like, you know, would I love opportunities like what all of our organizations are offering to be free for young people to access? Yes, but I also think that art and what artists do has value and is a part of our economic ecosystem. So then, you know, what message is that sending if it's like I've heard, and this is kind of just me speaking personally, but no one's going to a bank and saying like, if you could give a loan for free, would you? You know what I mean? Like, it's such an important part of our society and who we are as humans. And it has value. The artists that are doing it for these young people have value, and they should be able to be compensated everyone on this call should be able to, be compensated for that value add to our ecosystem and to society. So I have such mixed feelings about it. I feel that should it be available to everyone and every kid that wants to participate? I don't think there's anyone here that would disagree with that statement. But at the same time, it is valuable, So that, I don't know. It's just my personal thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks, Allison. Go ahead, Lee. We got 3 minutes.
I'm gonna throw in my own 2 cents to that question. In the way of an example, and then I'm gonna have to duck out to get on another call. The Young People's Course of New York City, which I consider to be one of the most excellent, highest performing, highest caliber youth courses in the nation. Most of their kids, they serve between 3,000 and 5,000 students in a given year, pay absolutely nothing to participate in their programs. They have a multi-million-dollar budget, a staff of several dozen people. And the payment that, like, they have such a at the same time, while they're working with kids from all walks of life, they have such a high degree of expectation of excellence from their singers that they pay in their dedication and their blood, sweat, and tears in what they bring to rehearsal. And so it really blows my mind. And I admire this organization so greatly. And then what they say is the whole kind of pay it forward thing. They say to their graduating seniors, like, we expect when you go away to college, whatever, we expect to see you back here. We expect to see, your butt in the audience, paying tickets, and we expect you to donate so that other kids can get what you got, and not have money be part of it. But what they demand of the kids in a really loving, but very, very high expectation way, is in some ways like what they pay, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody. I've got to duck off.
Thank you so much, Lee. We really appreciate you. Well, I think all of us have to go on to the next thing anyway. So we just want to say thank you again to everyone who's here, and especially to our panelists. Emily, I'm thinking I will give you a PDF version of these slides, and then I'm happy for them to be shared with the folks who actually did come here today in our panelists. Not widely, but I'm assuming you're going to put the recording somewhere on UniSound's website. Into it. Cool. What's next? I would encourage you to take one action towards your plan this week, which could include something like connect with one of these colleagues for more insight and support, or those who I just want to tell you real quick, I'm working on a cohort. We call it the Collective. It's 4 organizations. They're all woman-led small arts organizations in town. And we are doing a intensive around fundraising and increasing fundraising. And that's really what JazzSpace is all about, doing collaborative projects like that. I would love. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you so
See
much.
you later.
Thank you, Maggie. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. I would love to create a cohort within this group around this issue if possible. So schedule some one-on-one time with JazzSpace, which is basically me. We have a couple other folks, but if you think that would be helpful, and I would be remiss. Oh, and I'll send this around. Here are some of the resources that were mentioned today. And then, get in. I would be remiss if I didn't say, would love to help out. If you want to dive deep, we could have seriously, there's so many great things brought up. We could dive deep, probably another couple hours on each subtopic, including, how this relates to fundraising, how this relates to diversifying our programs and our participation, blah, blah, blah. So please let me know if there's anything I can do. And again, I really appreciate UniSound, especially Emily, and the steering committee for giving me the opportunity to do this. And I will say thank you. have a great day, everyone. Stay warm out there. And yeah, you'll probably be hearing from Emily for a survey. But yeah, I just really appreciate you. Aw, thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yes, no, you. Hi, Hallie.
Hi, thanks very much for this.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys on the flip side.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye-bye. Hey, Emily.
Hey,
Does that sound good to you?
yeah, that sounds great. I was already planning on sending out a survey, as you know. So
Okay.
I will send that out with the list of resources and the presentation and recording and everything.
Fabulous. Okay, so you're not gonna fire me? Did I do okay? Was that